Hello, and welcome everybody to another epic tale of ProRevenge. Okay, so it's actually 4 stories, but that didn't sound as good for an intro. Without further ado, my name's Ryan, the official host here on Reddit Voice, and I look forward to bringing you guys today's top stories. Before I do though, you just gotta hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to stay up to date on all the latest videos. You don't have to, but I'd really appreciate it if you did. Better be able to do what you say. Not to me, but my brother, who was the one who enacted on this revenge. He works on the assembly line of a well-known company. Soon learns that a lot of employees were either transferred or quit from this position over the years. He would soon learn it was because of a fellow worker stationed with him. Let's call him Richard. Richard has been working in this position for over 20 years, was apparently a high school dropout, and this was the only work he managed to find. As the years went on, people who worked with Richard seemed to get promoted to more difficult tasks that required further education in the field, and it seemed Richard was not liking that at all. Richard began making life difficult for those who had to work at the same station as him, even going as far as to take credit for their work and shifting the blame of some of his faulty products to them since he had been there for so many years and knows what he is doing. Then along comes my brother. He had a basic grasp of what the job entailed, having done the basic stuff in high school. It took him a little while, but eventually he worked his way to be on the same position as Richard and was soon producing the same output and quality as him. Naturally, Richard began to take credit for more and more of my brother's work. HR eventually got too involved after a complication between the two of them when numbers presented indicated that my brother had faults in almost all of his work, and that Richard had somehow managed to produce much more than the employee average, going on stating, "I can do the work for the two of us and produce a quality product. Mystic Musician's brother should not be here, and I will save you all a lot of money." Naturally, my brother was frustrated. Cameras couldn't prove that either were at fault for producing faulty products. Brother got a verbal warning and both left. My brother went and spoke to the site manager about the issue. Big surprise to those who were not I. But they were good friends through school. They both talked and the revenge was soon planned. After the manager went to HR and checked statements made from Richard, they impacted the revenge. Being near Christmas break, orders were low, so if faulty products were made, they could easily be remade and not affect the schedule, so it was a perfect time to act. My brother had time off built up with the company, so he used it. The site manager then went up to Richard, informing him that my brother will no longer be working with him. Richard's slight smile apparently turned to a look of disgust when a manager informed him that he would be working at the station by himself, and that he could not let their required numbers drop. That didn't sit well with Richard, and they both went to HR. Richard was yelling that it was unfair and unprofessional that he had to work alone, and yet had to do so much work. Then the manager brought out a file containing various statements about how he was good at his job and how effective he was. Apparently, the manager's response was, "You said you could do it, and if it saves us money, why do you think we wouldn't try to get some financial benefit out of it too?" Sorry guys, some of this, you could tell, has been written by someone whose first language is not English, and that makes it kind of difficult to transpose when they don't necessarily use the correct words or formatting, so just bear with me here. Richard took that bait of extra income and left in a huff. Needless to say, over the next 2 days, the numbers were not met. Even the majority of the products were deemed faulty and couldn't go to be used. This time, the manager called a meeting with the higher-ups, HR, and Richard. Richard tried to defend his actions, but with all his statements and the recent evidence of his skill level, he was let go. Brother came back to work, new guy replacing Richard, and eventually the quantity and quality of products were back to the required levels. Like the manager here said, Richard would not have to work with him anymore. If you're gonna talk a big game, Richard, be sure you can play it. "You messed with my time off for the last time." I used to work at the post office as an RCA, which is a rural carrier associate. It was a part-time driver job. It paid well, and I wanted to get the full-time job with benefits, so you have to start somewhere. The full-time driver on my route was Bill. Bill was his own man. He did what he wanted, and the postmaster allowed it. When I was trained, I rode one day with Bill. The next day, Bill called out. I then had to sort the mail and drive the route all alone. It was horrible. The PM should have told him to come in, but he was a spineless man. I didn't finish until around 8 p.m. and it should have been around 3 p.m. given the time of year and how long it would eventually take me. My schedule was every Saturday and any vacation days Bill would take. I also covered every time he called out. Now, as this was supposed to be a one-day-a-week job, I had a full-time job as Will at my local hospital. My post office job was in the next county over, about 45 minutes away each way. I would get calls at 6 a.m. from Bill with some bullshit excuse for him not wanting to come to work. He would say he had to see an orthodontist today, or I worked with these doctors and I know there was no way he would be able to get an appointment that early. If he needed an appointment, he should have called the day before so I could get my second shift job covered. Again, spineless PM would allow it to happen without any recourse. On my anniversary, I had told him I was going to take my wife out to a nice lunch before we're both going to our job at the hospital. At 6 a.m., the phone rang, and it was the same lie as always, and I had to go in. I reminded him it was my anniversary, and he said, "Too bad." I went in, totally pissed off. The same on my birthday, and then on my wife's birthday, he called out, and I had to work both jobs. A few months later, and nothing had changed. I applied to nursing school and was accepted for the fall program. I had several months, so I kept to myself. My plan was to work the same way I had, and if I was offered a full-time post office job, I'd take it. If not, I'd go running to nursing school. Both were great careers. Bill called out whenever the workload was heavy, like with Sears catalogs. They were the worst. The postmaster would do things like remove all the toilet paper from the bathrooms, thinking we were wasting time pooping, I guess? He'd also turn up the heat in the summer so we'd be miserable and leave our route faster, which was physically impossible because no matter how hot you got, you had to sort everything before leaving on your route. Sorting was by hand, and I was trying to be very accurate. Now, Bill had gotten remarried shortly before I started with the post office. They never had a chance for a honeymoon, so they put it off. They scheduled a 2-week trip to the Caribbean, when he told me that there was a month to go before they left, which was plenty of notice. He told me the tickets were non-refundable, so "don't screw me over," in his words. I had had enough of Bill and the PM screwing me all the time, so 10 days before he left, I put in my 2 weeks notice. The PM assumed I'd work through Bill's vacation. Nope, just the first 4 days. Bill called me at home. "Man, I've been good to you. You gotta cover my time. The vacation's non-refundable." I remind him of all the times he's lied or forced me to cover, and the days I had to work for him, like my anniversary, my birthday, and my wife's birthday. Also, how he screwed me over in orientation, making my first several weeks miserable. I left the day I said I would, the PM refused to cover, and Bill had to cancel the trip and come in and work. I loved nursing, so in the end, I made the best choice.
I, as a former store manager, deliberately hired a thief as my replacement.
I was recently let go from my job as a store manager. The company I worked for was abusive to both me and my staff. Some examples, which there are a lot more of, would be the owners/upper management coming to the store and chasing the staff around while snapping their fingers and saying, "You're not working hard enough, go, go, go." The owner/upper management coming to the store and telling me how fat ex-employee is. The owner/upper management spreading rumors about the staff and I. And the owner/upper management screaming at us over the phone loud enough that customers could hear it. A month or so before I was let go, I had a pay dispute wherein I explained bluntly, but professionally, how they need to pay me because it's the right thing to do. They had promised extra pay above my salary for working hours I shouldn't have had to do because of something they did and then purposefully did not pay me that money. Eventually, they paid me, but they really didn't like that I stood up for myself and thus started their plan to get rid of me. One of them even stopped speaking to me altogether. After this, I was strangely given permission to hire a staff for the store. I needed one, so I happily posted an ad online and started interviewing people. It took a month, but I finally found the one I liked and called their references, which came back average but good enough. A sales representative I knew saw the resume on my desk and told me I should call X business, which was not on the resume. I did, and it turned out this person had been fired for theft of money and product in the same industry of which I'm hiring for. I decided not to hire the thief. A few days after deciding against the thief, I was forwarded a resume from the owner that had stopped speaking to me. It was instructing me to interview the thief I decided against. But how did this owner get the thief's resume in their inbox? The ad was mine and forwarded only to my email, and I only had the password to the account. I followed the link back to an ad that I didn't write and posted from a different account. This ad was for a store manager, a poor attempt at being sneaky. I could have quit right then, but I had a better idea. The owners are notoriously spiteful, but I know they're also lazy and don't do their due diligence. They think they're having me hire my own replacement without me knowing. So I hired the thief as my employee, while the owners, having already seen the thief's resume, sees them as a good fit for store manager. I vouched for the thief's references, knowing they'd never call themselves. 3 weeks later, I was let go when I arrived at my store. The owners seemed confused by the big smile on my face when they told me. I was just genuinely happy to be finished there. It was the worst employment experience of my life, but it was a job out of necessity. I was able to collect employment insurance, thankfully. The thief took over managing the store. Thanks to the new store hours, the thief works 5 days a week, with no staff, open to close, unsupervised.
Play illegal games, win legal prizes.
This happened about a decade ago. Long story, but worth the read in my opinion. I worked for a large drug chain as a frontline manager. For the chain, the pharmacist is the owner of the shop. They run it, but the company still owns the whole thing. I guess it's like they're a corporate franchisee. Anyways, this shop had a history of not being able to keep a manager in the role that I had just took on for very long. The training was practically non-existent, and nothing was documented.
On with the show.
One day, within my first 3 months, I'm sick as a dog and can barely get out of bed. As it's a health and wellness business, and as I couldn't work even if I wanted to, I called into the back of the house manager. This manager acts as the assistant manager to the owner, as they were real-life friends. I said I was sick and couldn't be into work. I was asked who would be covering for me, as I had to open the shop every day, and I said I didn't know. I was told that as a manager I was responsible for this and needed to find someone. Fair enough. Even though nobody told me about this, I pulled out my staffing list and found someone to cover my shift who had keys and could open the store. Keep in mind that most of my staff were part-time students, and I only had one full-time employee that worked Monday through Friday. When I got into work the next day, the assistant manager told me that I couldn't call in sick and that the next time I called in sick, I shouldn't bother coming back. I was shocked, as this is very unprofessional, and I didn't expect it coming from the second in command at the store. My one full-time employee starts telling me that I'm the best manager they've had for the last 2 years. And during the time, they went through 6 managers before me. I'm told that I've done more in my time than all of the previous managers did in total. Things like having the staff cash out on company time, not making people stay to find errors/recount on their own time. Basically, not breaking labor laws. So the owner calls me into their office and tells me that due to my sick day, I won't be paid for it as I am still on probation, and the accountant who does the payroll will be instructed as such. This was unexpected as I am a salaried employee, and probation or not, I know this isn't right, but I agreed and get on with my day. Being that there were lots of part-time/students that worked here, we had an actual punch clock to clock in and clock out for all employees, including me. Being a salaried manager, whenever one of my staff couldn't work and if I couldn't find a replacement, I ended up covering the shift myself. I looked at it like an opportunity to get to know my evening staff better, as I usually never saw them. On the paycheck that my sick day happened, I also needed to cover a few extra shifts for other employees, as everyone seems to get sick at about the same time. And as the manager, I'm the one who totals up the time cards prior to giving them over to the accountant. These time cards can't be faked, as they are physically punched in and coded with dates and times from the machine. Here's the malicious compliance part. I handed my team's time cards with mine on top to the accountant, who looks at me and reminds me about the instructions she's gotten from the owner. She didn't like it, but had her orders. I tell her that I understand, and here's my time card. She looks at it, raises her eyebrows at me, and before she can ask a question, I remind her that I am not a salaried employee, as I'm still on probation, and that normal pay rules should apply, even though this is illegal. She looks at me, smiles, and confirms that she knows what she was told to do by the owner. It turns out that deducting the sick day I missed, but adding on the 3 extra shifts I had to work prior to that period to cover for other staff not showing up, I ended up working about 96 hours that payday. So because I wasn't salaried, the accountant paid me time and a half for the extra 16 hours I worked. And here's the ProRevenge for ya. Because I knew that these things weren't really legal, I decided I was done with this company and this boss. I emailed my friend who helped me get the job, just happened to be the head of their corporate security with the story I just told, and gave him permission to send it to whoever he thinks would need to see it. Later that week, I got a call from another employer asking if I could start immediately. I said yes, of course, and went back into work. This call happened just after I had gotten home from work. Yes, before cell phones were a thing. I walked into work, went into the back office to collect my personal effects, and came back out. My shift supervisor was perplexed as I had just left for the night. I shook his hand and I told him that it was nice working with him. He was shocked and asked, "You're firing me?" I actually lolled and told him, "No, I'm quitting. You get to keep working here." I went in to hand my keys and resignation to the night pharmacist and told them to pass it on to the owner. My letter consisted of,
"I quit. Signed, E/Evil Lothar."
That's that guy's Reddit profile name for those of you who didn't get to see it, which is probably all of you watching right now. I went back a few weeks later to get some stuff. I still shop there as it's close to my home, and the one full-time employee says, "Hi," with a big ol' smile and tells me the following in hushed tones. "A few days after you left, some suits from head office came in, had a meeting with the owner and left. When the owner left after that day, they haven't been seen with the owner since. Seems the suits came and took the store away from them based on owner's inability to keep their position filled." Employee didn't know I sent the email I sent to the head of security, but when I mentioned it, the employee lit up like a light bulb and said, "So that's why." The icing on the cake for me was that the owner knew about this connection I had with the head of security, as they were listed as a reference and the owner contacted them directly about the referral. Doing illegal stuff to someone with a direct line to the head of security is probably not a good idea. And with that, my friends, we've reached the end of today's video. If you liked it, be sure to leave a like and also subscribe so you could stay up to date with all the latest and greatest. As always, my name's Ryan, the official host here on Reddit Voice, and I had someone ask me a very good question earlier. Ndruark asked, "Is there an unofficial narrator?" Also, that CEO voice was hilarious.
"Well, you see there, Mr. Ndruark. I actually left my good employee Bob to be the unofficial narrator, but seeing as he ain't good at much, we had to leave that position for Ryan."
There you have it, folks. It was Bob the whole time. And if you don't know Bob, you should go check out yesterday's video. Until next time, this is Ryan, the official host of Reddit Voice, recording yet another video at 4 a.m. with police sirens in the background. Now, you never necessarily get to see me, but I look forward to seeing you guys in tomorrow's video.
Adios.